Let me be medicine, just what you're calling in. Honey on the heart, fresh start. This is where it all begins. Let me be medicine. Let me get out of the way so it can be enough space for the healing. Soothe your spirit with a melody as the remedy.
Hey Alex, how are you?
I'm doing great, Queen Auset. How you doing today?
I'm wonderful. It's a beautiful day outside in sunny California.
Yes, and it's very sunny in South Florida and windy. It was windy, yeah.
Yeah, we got a lot of rain this past winter, and usually California's kind of dry and brown, going through droughts, but I'm thankful for the rain, and we're fortunate to get it when we do. But today I was hoping that you and I can talk about something that I'm experiencing in my life as I'm embarking upon some new relationships with a sisterhood, about communicating with each other, how important it is that we're made clear and we understand each other, because I don't feel like in school or growing up we really get enough of that lesson. I touched on it before, but I wanted to expound a little bit on it. How about you?
Nice. Yeah, I'll definitely look forward to our conversation today in the sense of it's expounding into the sisterhood or the conversation of human beings.
Do you feel that conversation is something that you found important growing up? Did you enjoy it? How do you feel about just the art of conversation? Did you ever think of it as an art form?
Yeah, I really never put any thought into it. It was just a matter of just expressing the best way I can. And if I get a rebuttal or a kickback from somebody that say, don't say that, or don't do that, it's like a lesson learned to kind of learn on the go.
Do you wish there were some other type of formal training for that, or do you feel like you're doing okay?
No, I really wish there was some kind of training on that, seriously, because it's good to kind of know how to express naturally without how can I say, walking on eggshells, and for me it's very important to just be myself. And if I am being myself, how can I be accepted for someone to understand my lingo,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've made that observation in my lifetime, that when a person is uncomfortable with expressing themselves through words and conversation, if you attempt to have a conversation with them, they withdraw, and like you said, they feel like they're walking on needles and pins or eggshells because they are uncomfortable with having conversation. And sometimes I've heard, people say in response to my attempts to start a conversation, they say they feel interrogated. And and in conversation, you can ask questions, you can make statements, you can make observations. It's such a broad medium. Conversation is that questions are not the only thing. And I understand that if someone feels like they're just getting a bunch of questions one after the other, that can feel like interrogation, because when you think about interrogation, I always think of when people are sitting in that interrogation room and that light is above their head and there's only one chair in the room and you've got somebody standing above you asking you these questions over and over again. And I would not want my conversational skills to be relegated to that vision. Have you had that experience?
I had that experience quite a few times, that I think if the person had so many questions, I will wonder, okay, where's this conversation going? Because I'm trying my best to answer your questions and I'm finding out that I'm almost shaming myself by answering your questions, and I'm in trouble for being direct. So it's like one part is being direct and truthful, but then it's like, okay, if I was able to just let this person know that I'm being interrogated, for them to kind of slow down on the way they're communicating with me so I don't feel this way. So it does come with some, I say borderline boundary of like, what are we doing? What are we discussing? Is it flowing? So that's what runs through my mind when I feel interrogated by someone asking me a question.
That makes a lot of sense. Is it flowing? So that brings us back to the whole concept of, having a pulsation nation where we're conscious of our vibration. We're conscious of how our speech is flowing and not so much attached to how the person is receiving it, because we want to be free to be honest. We want to be free to be open. But I think in that being honest and open, just understanding the frequency of which your vibrating tone is being released, just being aware of that. I think that's important because, asking questions should not feel intimidating to someone. And then a lot of times, sometimes a person might think that if a person has a problem with answering questions or being asked questions, then they must be concealing something. But it could be, like I mentioned earlier, they just don't have the conversational skills to be able to manage their emotions at the same time that they're answering questions.
Let me ask you, like, when you asking questions and someone's feeling like they're being interrogated, are you giving them the heads up of what the topic is about or where this may be going so they could feel safe and at ease?
That's a good question, because it's something that I don't experience. I don't experience feeling unsafe when I'm just talking to people. My father was a very avid conversationalist, communicator, lecturer. And although we used to dread, his lectures, it taught us the art of, speaking to people. And he used his tone in whatever expression he wanted to get across. So if he was firm about something, you could tell that tone. If he was being playful about something, you could tell that tone. And it didn't really warrant any kind of emotional response from me. I would listen to my dad, and whatever tone he was taking, I would respond accordingly. But I didn't really take his tone as my tone. You know what I mean? If he was upset about something and his tone was firm, I didn't really become upset because he was upset. It was almost like, let daddy say what he got to say. And so it kind of taught me to manage my emotions when I'm listening to people. And although it is a challenge, if someone says something that hurts you, it's a challenge not to be hurt by that. And it's a challenge not to respond back in a aggressive way. But it's a challenge worth having. So to answer your question, if I'm having conversation with someone, I don't think that conversation really flows if you jump to the end. And I'm not sure if that's actual conversation, if in fact you already know the direction you're going in. You might have a thought or an idea that you want to hear the other person's opinion about, but to know in advance how, it's like to give you a heads up, I don't think that's actually conversation. I do think that is interrogation. That's not conversation. That is interrogation.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. And comes with that interrogation is the potential of someone being combative. So I know with me, if I'm being interrogated by someone, I'm ready to say, be in defense. There's no flow. I want to know, where is this going, so I could be armored and ready to like shut it down. Like, hey, we want to shut this down because it seems like he or she had this whole agenda, like you said, like pre-planned of what to discuss, which I don't think that's really the art of the conversation if we want to have that kind of conversation, whatever the topic is. So for instance, it's like today, I enjoy us talking. For me to do research and plan and everything else, no, you and I, Queen Auset, have a communication, an art of conversion, and we do enjoy that. So I just want to express that.
I appreciate that. I enjoy talking to you too. I really like having conversations. But if you mentioned something, that if someone sounds as if they're interrogating you, your response is to react and shut it down. I think I would take a different approach, because obviously I think that reacting and shutting a person down will escalate the situation and it won't de-escalate it. And my objective always, when someone is being very, very intense, and this is, I know, because I'm intense. I know that I'm an intense person. So if someone was trying to shut me down and remind me that this should be a conversation rather than an interrogation, that's what I would do if I was dealing with an intense person just like myself, and they had a point to make, and it was obvious that they had a point to make. I wouldn't shut them down. I would manage my emotions as instructed in Meduniter Volume 1, and in the initiation process of elevating from a child to an adult. That's part of the lessons in Meduniter Volume 1, is managing your emotions. And, because we can call them our children, our emotions, we can call them our children. And in ancient Kemetic sciences, they call them animals. They had animal names for them and animal images for the different emotions that we experience. So knowing that, I would switch. Like if someone was expressing very angry emotions, combative, warlike, like Sekhmet, the warrior goddess, I wouldn't come with Sekhmet. I wouldn't armor up to meet up with Sekhmet. If I wanted to resolve this, if I wanted me and this person to be friends, if we're embarking upon a friendship, I wouldn't suit up in my armor and come at Sekhmet with fire, because I don't think that fighting fire with fire is effective, because everybody gets burned.
I agree.
And so I would come at, and that's the Tree of Life meditation system. That's what it teaches us. So I would come at fiery Sekhmet with watery Auset. I would come with a different approach, or a sweet Heteru. And I would tell the person, I know there's something bothering you. I could tell by your tone. And in order for us to have successful communication right now, why don't we change this interrogation style into a conversation? and I am going to answer your questions, but we're going to have a conversation about it. So tell me what is bothering you or what you need to know from me, and then we'll take it from there. But I definitely wouldn't shut the person down, because I think it's quite dysfunctional, because that person could just blow up, like spontaneously combust, like explode. And that's if I care about the person, or if I love this friend that I already have established a friendship with, I wouldn't want to hurt them in any kind of way. So shutting them down would hurt them. And I wouldn't do that. I would they're hurting. If they're coming at you in a kind of way, something has hurt them. And you could see that because you could feel it, because that's what's making you uncomfortable, that they're hurt and they're trying to push their hurt on you. And so by you being the evolved person, you would not allow that to happen, but not in a way that creates boundaries, because the whole thing with conversation is releasing restrictive boundaries, but then also recognizing healthy boundaries.
Right before we get into that healthy boundary, I wanted to understand on the withdrawing part, because withdrawing or going silent on somebody because they feel interrogated. Have you ever experienced withdrawing your emotions from somebody that was like pretty painful?
Well, that's what you do when you manage your emotions. You're withdrawing them, you're controlling them. You're controlling your emotions and not allowing them to control you. So when you say withdraw your emotions, how does that look in a conversation type situation?
Is that someone may be coming with no bad intentions of hurting somebody or not expressing the whole interrogation expression, but the person that's being asked the questions, just listening, they may not want to engage, or they just feel out of it. I am aware that when communicating with a friend that's just not in the mood and they're not expressing that, is it a way of just looking at the body language and say, hey, this is not the time to discuss anything, and let me not continue to poke this person to make them feel better. And just return. We could come back to this conversation with questions or the art of conversation, however, but I am aware that myself been in a situation, I've been the one to coming with very love, heart, but they're just not there. There's no connection there.
Well, that's different. That's actually what we were saying, expressing healthy boundaries. Because if you can tell that this person is not in a space where you can talk them down from their uneasiness, and you're trying to keep yourself from becoming uneasy, so you want to table the conversation until the emotions are more in control. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, pretty much be on the same page of being receptive, in conversation,
Yeah, that's a healthy boundary. That's a healthy boundary. It's said like if, you just came home from work and you had a rough day at work, and, you come home and your friend or your sister or brother or your parent has something on their mind, and they want to get it off their mind because it's been on their mind all day. So they built up all this anxiety around it. And you walk through the door and boom, there it is. Again, if you don't have the strength or the skill to ask the person to express themselves in a calmer way, or a way that is more conversational rather than interrogative, then yeah, the next course of action is to say, okay, well, I had a rough day. at work, and I really want to take a hot bath right now. And I appreciate that you have something that you want to say, but if you could do me the honor of allowing me some time first to decompress, and then we can get back to what you're talking about. So yeah, that's the healthy boundary. And there's a difference between unhealthy boundaries and healthy boundaries, because just shutting someone down is not healthy, but expressing to them what you're feeling, and hoping that they're able to respect that, is different. You're not shutting them down. You're just asking for some grace and some consideration. And I know most anyone will respond in a way that is more to their liking if they're approached that way, but more times than not, we've been taught to fight fire with fire, or just walk away. And again, those pseudoscience is coming from people that are not from our culture. There's another book, Sobonfu Somé wrote, not just The Spirit of Intimacy, but in another book about community. I'll put the title in the description. She teaches us how to have community relationships. And in her community, which obviously was way more functional than ours, they would have ash circles. They would create an ash circle. If someone had something on their mind, they wouldn't just attack the person, with words. They would, bring it to the community and say, there's something going on in my home or in my friendship, and I need some help, And so the community, usually with the wise elders taking the lead, because wise elders have learned, that fighting fire with fire only burns everybody. Young people are full of fire. So a lot of times they want to fight fire with fire, and they just think that that's a way to get it out. But one of the beauties, and I know this is a long way around, but I always like to infuse every conversation with African wisdom. But because I want you to know, as we have conversations, Alex, that I'm not just coming off the top of my head. I'm not just saying stuff because I think it sounds good. I'm using these references from these scholars and these elders and these, leaders in our community that have researched and studied how our relationships were functional before they became dysfunctional. So is that okay with you if I take the long way around?
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay. But, so yeah, you would go to the community and they would create this ash circle, and the two people that are having the communication challenge or the challenge, whatever it may be, would sit in the middle of the ash circle back to back, and begin to, even if there's room for this, to shout out what's bothering them, just shout it out. And then after they get all that energy out of them, after they've shouted till they can't shout anymore, until they've cried until they can't cry anymore, they're not facing each other, they're not judging each other, they're just speaking out. And then the elders take each issue one at a time and talk it over, because by the time you finish crying, by the time you finish yelling, you're exhausted. You really are ready for a resolution. And then the community together helps the partners, the two people, come up with a solution. Then they go in the ocean or a body of water and rinse themselves off, and all that's gone. It's just gone now. It's resolved. It's over. It doesn't do any good to try to bring it up again, and because it shouldn't come up again. But I think that we have issues in our society because, in an effort to quote unquote stay positive, or to not, we don't create these boundaries, and we allow people to walk all over us. We keep these feelings inside because we don't want to hurt someone else's feelings, or we're the opposite, where we're always barking at people because we're hurt and we want to hurt. And these things don't really work. So if one is not working on oneself to be able to manage one's emotions, then conversations will always sound interrogative. You will not know how to de-escalate it, and you will always have communication issues. So I think it's wise to set boundaries and understand how to communicate those boundaries effectively to the people in your life. And if they're able to respect those boundaries by complying, okay, Alex, I understand you had a hard day at work, because once someone comes at me calmly, if I'm in a rage, it calms me down. It calms me down. Maybe not immediately, but just looking at a calm person, being in the presence of a calm person calms me down. And if they approach me and my rage respectfully and calmly, I'm a much better person from it. And in my mind, even if I'm being the antagonist in this situation, I'm like, wow, I really want this person to be my friend because they're just amazing right now. They're handling me and my Scorpio rage with such grace. So they can help me to be a more balanced Scorpio. So I'm going to value their boundaries. They're asking me to hold on to my questions and my thoughts until they decompress from the day, and then we can get back to it. But what I will do, or if the other party, say yourself, is wise enough to instruct me to go to my journal, because people in the Hz-A society that study the Maduna and live by it, when they have these conflicts with each other, this is what they do. Just like people that study the Bible, they'll throw a Bible verse, but I prefer the Maduna because it doesn't just throw a Bible verse at me. It gives me instructions. It tells me step A, B, and C. It doesn't just pass judgment on me or tell me to do something or not to do something. But if I'm in a fiery mood and someone else is coming at me with water, one of the things that would be great to help me reduce my fire energy while they're decompressing would be for me to write in my journal, or to go and do some breathing practices, qigong, meditation, yoga, anything, ride my bike, do some exercises just to get all the energy out, the equivalent of sitting in that circle and shouting and screaming and having a community there to absorb that and decode it. In the absence of that, it also works to, express that energy in a different way rather than in anger. And then by the time the other person decompresses, I've decompressed, and then it would be a better time to have a conversation.
Well said, and I resonated with a lot, because I did have times in my life where just yelling out loud, I mean, there was no one around, but I just yelled and just wanted to express myself because there was so much things bottled up inside of me that it did help. And then I went into journal. So you did express quite a few things there that I jot down, especially to have grace in the healthy boundary. Now, I don't know about the different types of breathing, I could be honest, but I have learned that when my breathing is off, is to calm myself down. I mean, no one can really read my mind or how I'm feeling in the moment. So before I express myself, it's like almost like think before you speak. So I'm breathing before I speak, make sure my breathing is on point. And I have expressed before, this may not be the moment right now. Just give me some time and get back right with you. And things are at a level point, so definitely was taking in what you were sharing there. And the journal, oh man, the journal part, for some reason I feel like someone is ready to, I don't know why, but they just feel like they want to express something to me. I'd be like, journal it first, just journal it, because I feel like whatever they're going to express to me is coming with a lot of negative energy, I'll say, without labeling exactly what it is, but they come in with some negative energy. That put that pain in that journal before you put that pain on me, and then want me put pain back on you, like hurt people. As you was expressing earlier, Queen Auset, with the whole fire with fire. So I have expressed, to someone, friends, journal it out. Journaling, you don't have to tell me everything. I don't think you have to tell me everything. So the release frustration in the community circle resonated with me a lot. Who do
Does
we?
it?
Huh? Sorry.
I was gonna say, does it really? Because a lot of people don't like other people in their business. Like, I don't, you know, we don't live in a society where it's okay to have your community get involved in your issues.
Which is correct, and I have went to, as my family's Catholic, Christian Catholic, where you want to go, forgot the words, but if you want to speak to a priest, you go in the room and you just talk out your sins. I should say, like, whatever's on your mind, whatever's bothering you spiritually, you just talk it out. But confession, there we go, confession. And about a good 2 to 3 weeks, it was like right back on me again, whatever that feeling was. And some of the books, the Metu, the Spirit of Intimacy, some of the books that you have shared with me helped me through what I was feeling or what was missing spiritually in me. So just want to express that.
Yeah, that's a very important point. Because I think that it's been misplaced, the word judging. People, I think, like to say, don't judge me, and you're judging me, and conversations go out of control with that admission that you're being judged, or I feel judged. If someone comes to a conclusion about perhaps your behavior, or something that they feel you need to work on, and their response to you is, I feel judged. And unfortunately, in our society, this is not a good thing. And in some religious texts that are not indigenous say that as well. Only God can judge me. But in truth, if we're looking at Ma'at, the scales of Ma'at, the scales of balance, and you look at the hieroglyphs in the walls of the temples and pyramids of our ancestors, the time of judgment is not after you die. It's every minute of every day. And if you see yourself in the image of God, then you're supposed to be judging yourself. And if you're not doing that self-work every day, if you're not working on yourself and recognizing your behavior and reflecting on it and going into meditation and writing out the meditation scripts as it teaches you in the Metu, volume 4, volume 2 and 4 had those initiation practices where it teaches you to think of a scenario that you blew up or went out of control, write it down, and then, utilize the principle of that day to resolve the issue, and then visualize yourself in meditation doing it the way that would be in Ma'at. And so if you're not doing that every day, at some point there has to be a judgment. Either you're going to judge yourself and say, I'm not handling this well. Let me see what I can do to fix it. Let me go to my references and my ancestors and see how I can work on this, or the community elders. But if you're not doing any of that and someone comes at you and says, well, this is what's happening that I can see, and I'm hoping that it's something we can work on together, or you can work on, and your response is just, I feel judged. Well, yeah. Because if you're interacting with people and you're not working on yourself, and you're destroying, not only your communications and your relations with others, you're destroying yourself, and you're destroying that person and their world. So when they mention it, like, I love you, but you right now with your communication skills, it's not happening. This is not becoming effective. Or, if you're just now embarking upon a new friendship with someone and they're just like doing the same thing over and over again and never fixing it, yeah, it's up to you to say, well, if we're going to continue to try to be friends, then I would like you to take a look at this. And, if you want to have that relationship and continue on establishing a friendship with that person, it would be to your best interest to look at it. They could be wrong, but they could be right. But if you never look at it and you just push it away, you're like, I feel judged. Judgment is not a bad thing. We all make judgment calls. We judge who we're going to have in our life. If you don't, you're not setting those healthy boundaries. You have to set healthy boundaries to determine whether or not someone could be in your life. If someone has a drug addiction and they're always acting out, then they're not working on that drug addiction, and you pointed out that you have a drug addiction and their only response is I feel judged, but they don't go get help, then yeah, you've made a judgment call that person can't be in your life, and that's healthy.
Wow. When it comes to healthy boundaries, I reflect on myself on things I want in my life and don't want, right? Is it really unrealistic if I try to match that with somebody in communicating in the art of conversation with the whole healthy boundaries? Because I was taught if you want to set healthy boundaries is to kind of let the person know what the boundary is about. But I don't find myself just, here go my list of boundaries, and see if this person matches it, or we discuss each one and make sure they understand all the rules. As I expressed before, the way was taught, or not taught, but what I've understand in life is that express, and if it's something that doesn't, wasn't match well, I just adjust. So what I'm trying to get here is that setting the healthy boundaries and then knowing the difference if you're compromising too much for someone. Yeah.
Interesting point. Yeah. Well, the thing with setting boundaries, like you said, it's not a matter of just listing out all of my rules for being in my life. It's more about, as these situations arise, it's being demonstrated. Like if someone demonstrates going beyond a boundary that you don't like, you have to allow them the room to demonstrate it, So you have to be strong emotionally and be able to deal with people, especially in a new friendship, stepping outside of your boundaries because they don't know your boundaries, and you didn't just sit them down one day and say, these are my boundaries, these are my rules, because people could say anything out of their mouth. Just like you could sit someone down and say, you should be my friend because I'm all these great things. That doesn't mean anything. People could say anything out of their mouth. You take the time to watch them demonstrate all these good things, or when these situations arise, for instance, the conversation we've been having around a de-escalating a fiery conversation or a confrontation from someone. That's a demonstration that's a teachable moment. You hear people say teachable moment. That's a teachable moment where you get the opportunity to express to someone, okay, these are my boundaries. If I came home, if I'm just getting in the door from work, it's 9 times out of 10, they could have been things that happened to me out there in the world that I just need comfort from when I come home. So, can we do this differently? And that's your opportunity to see whether or not this person is going to respect your boundaries, without you having to list them. So demonstrating your boundaries. For instance, one of my boundaries is, I am not going to call someone about business at 9 o'clock at night because I don't want them doing that to me. So I demonstrate to people, I'm going to call you during normal business hours when it has to do with business. So by my demonstrating that, I'm asking you to behave in the same way, reciprocate. And if you don't pick up on that, because some people think I'm not a mind reader. I've heard people say that I'm not a mind reader, but no, you have a mind. So, if you see me only calling you between the hours of 9 and 5, then why would you call me at 9 o'clock at night, trying to talk business? So if a person is not wise enough to recognize your demonstration of boundaries, and they still call you at 9 o'clock at night, teachable moment. That's when you say it. Okay, have you noticed I only call you between 9 and 5? That's how I like to conduct my business, because my after hours time is for me and my family and my wellness and my rest. So I don't know, did that answer your question?
That definitely did. It was definitely explained, and just pretty much allowing the person to understand where you stand, pretty much in that healthy, as you mentioned earlier with your dad and his tone. Doesn't mean if it was pleasant or unpleasant, he still was able to express in the proper tone what needs to get done, or what has to be done in this space for both of us to have this conversation. So yeah, I clearly understand.
What do you mean by proper tone, though?
Well, what I mean by proper tone, that I'm probably coming from a mindset of sometimes being the word of expressing in different types of tones, Queen Auset, comes with probably a man just being a little bit too extra with it. So probably that's what was expressing through my mind when I expressed that proper tone.
But is it proper for you or proper for him? That's the thing. When someone's communicating with you as a listener and a receiver of that communication, it's probably the most balanced thing is to not let their tone affect you. So their tone is their tone, and your tone is your tone. And yeah.
In other words, when someone is being a little bit too extra, I don't know if you ever heard anything like that when it comes.
Yeah, but that's not for us to say, because for them, it might be what it is they need in order to express themselves. When I mentioned my daddy, it was like, well, however daddy wanted to express himself, that's how daddy expressed himself. And I'm not going to say as a child, because my father did treat us very much like mature people. He had respect for us. He listened to us. He respected our opinion. If we were screaming and crying, he didn't start screaming and crying. He just listened. So we would give him the same respect. So if daddy was angry about something or had a tone that was his tone and it didn't need to affect me in any kind of way, that's why I got that early training that daddy's tone doesn't affect me. Daddy's tone is daddy's tone, and I'm going to respond in a way that usually I was responding in a way, like if he was fiery, I would respond in a watery way or a Hz-A way, because children are very smart. They can sense our feelings. And, I would sense when my father was feeling distraught about something, and I would come at him in another way to try to get a different response from him. So that's basically, as adults, I think the Ma'atian way, not my way, but the Ma'atian way is don't determine whether someone's tone is proper or improper, because it might be proper for them.
I'm coming from years of my tone was off. I noticed it in my early 20s, and it was something that I just had to work on. And as I worked on it, the communication was a little bit better. So I probably was coming with a lot of fire energy. My mother is in November, Scorpio. She's a Scorpio also, and sometimes, we could have a nice, good conversation, but the way she expressing it, she's being herself, which is true. It's like, is it necessary to be that aggressive in expressing on something that could be level, what's, on a level base of conversation? So sometimes I have to, I'm not tiptoeing, but I'm just letting, let's calm it down. Because I think things was just getting a little bit too, as we would say, fiery.
So is it fiery because you're not able to manage your emotions? Because that's all we have in control of. We only have control of ourselves. That's it. So if you find that your tone is not getting you the results that you want, and you work on your tone, that's excellent. That's excellent. I commend you for that. Recognizing that your tone is not giving you the results, but it's not really for you to, determine someone else's tone and whether or not it's proper, or if someone is being extra, because people are extra. There's archetypes of people that, there's different archetypes. That's what you mentioned, Scorpio. You mentioned, that's one of the archetypes. And when we talk about archetypes, it's a form of language. It's a form of communication. Astrology is a form of language. That's how, if we look at it metaphorically, that's how God communicates with us, through the planets and the stars and the vibrations and the colors and, the sounds. So when we recognize archetypes in ourselves and we match them up with the planets, that's called astrology, and cosmology. And then there's numerology. And if Scorpio, the way you described your mother, is very much the way I am as well, but I'm on the cusp of Scorpio and Libra. So early on, I realized that I needed to balance out my Scorpio energy. I didn't want to be burning up myself and everybody around me. So that Libra cusp kind of helped me out and helped me balance myself out and recognize that I needed to seek out, the self-healing that I sought out, when I started learning the initiation systems of my ancestors and started listening to my ancestors, started learning what the hieroglyphs mean and the spiritual systems. That was all in an effort to balance out the negative connotations of Scorpio. And there's times when people try to tell me that, but it's not effective when other people tell me. It's more effective when I tell myself. That whole thing that people aren't going to change until they're ready to change. So the thing is if your mother's tone is making you uncomfortable, then wonder why. Like, why is she making me uncomfortable? It's only words. You know what I mean? It's only words. Like, no matter how they're coming out, I know she's not trying to hurt me. I know she's not going to hurt me. Yeah. So why am I not able to manage my emotions enough to just sit here and listen to her, however she needs to express it?
Yeah.
So I don't. When I look at people, I recognize that they have different archetypes of people. I love recognizing it. I study it. When I study the oracle systems of the Mayan cosmology system, and I remember I did your oracle reading for you. Your signature, it's called your signature reading in Olmec Mayan cosmology, and it tells you about your personality type or your archetype. That's what type is short for. It's short for archetype, and a lot of us hear the term archetype when we're referring to superheroes and gods and goddess. Like a person has a Het Heru or Orshun archetype. It's the same as when you call them a Scorpio or a Libra or a Cancer. That there's people are affected by the planets that they're born under, because we're made of the same substance as the stars. So it makes sense that, like stars and planets, we are affected by these greater archetypes in the universe. So once you understand the archetypes, you're not going to be trying to change them. Like, that's why it's always good to get a compatibility reading before you start a friendship, relationship, marriage, engagement, love affair with anyone. Like, that's why people ask, what is your zodiac sign? So when people say things like, I don't believe in that, that's just ignoring the language of our universe. You're ignoring the language of our universe. In other words, you're ignoring actually the language of God. So if your religion is telling you not to pay attention to that, you have to question that, because it's a communication tool. And when you link up with someone, it behooves you to find out what their archetype is, because someone that has a fiery energy, that has a tendency to have a fiery energy, the best thing you could do for them is not tell them to stop being who they are. but actually guide them. Like, I got this book, it really helped me out a lot with understanding myself more, and even understanding the Bible and what the intentions of religions are and were originally before they were tampered with. This called Maduniter Volume 1, and there's a whole series of them. And if you read them, you'll understand, your archetype a little bit better. And my archetype, I'm a more calm person. So, making me be as hype as you is not going to happen, And then by the same token, me trying to make you as calm as I am is not going to happen. But the thing with the Tree of Life meditation system is that we actually have all the archetypes inside each of us. Like, I'm not just a Scorpio. Like, I have the ability to be fiery, just like Sekhmet, Scorpion. I could be that, but I could also be watery by calling myself Auset, by hearing people call me Auset. This calms my nature. This brings about the balance that makes me not so fiery. It balances me out for people to call me Auset, for me to call myself Auset, identify with the Auset energy, and understand that this is something that is good for me. It's a good judgment call. If someone says, you know what, you have a lot of Sekhmet energy, why don't you do some studying and research on the Auset principle or the head of root principle and see if that resonates with you at all? Or someone that's in the know might tell you to do a ritual. You need to do some Auset rituals, or if you do an oracle reading, the oracle reading might tell you the same exact thing. Like, yeah, in order for you to be successful, i.e. have better communications with people, better relationships with people, you might want to start doing some, Auset work. Set up an altar for Auset, do some Auset rituals, give some offerings to Auset, and this will help balance you out. So I just want to thank some of you who leave a comment on our first episode that we launched, and it makes us feel really, really appreciated when we hear from you. Henry says, I'm so glad you're back. I've been hoping to contact you somehow. Need your guidance, please. Thanks. So we're going to see, of course, privately what Henry needs to discuss. Live from Planet Earth just gave us a nice little shout out with a little emoji. And the Love and Excellence fam says, Trentina here. Human connection in the form of divine love and harmony is definitely what is needed around the world. Thank you, Trentina. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. It's a beautiful name and a beautiful thought. I feel the same, and that's a great way to close it out. What do you say, Alex?
Yeah, definitely a great way. Thank you for all the feedback and the comments underneath the video. Pulsation Nation, thank you.